How did the idea for this report come about?
I was working with the Asian Development Bank in Armenia on their disability assessment system. And it was very interesting work. And I thought it was something that was important, not just internally within Armenia to get a full understanding of what was happening, but I think a lot of other countries who were working on similar issues would really like to know about it. And so therefore, I thought it was important to somehow figure out a way to create a report that can really analyze the Armenian reforms.
What are the main findings of the report?
Just in general, that's for people who might not know what was this report about, is that we were evaluating the Armenians' transition to a new disability assessment system based on like two main parts. So first, it was a shift from a medical model, just clearly medical model, to a more social model based on the functioning based approach with the WHO ICF framework. This was one part. And second part was that the change from more paper-based assessment towards digital, like innovative new digital platform. We find out that this reform was conceptually very strong, and it was aligned with international standards, but also Armenia used digitalization, which haven't been used before in like many other countries. So that's why also Armenia could serve as potentially as an example for different countries. And that's why we also did this report, because we wanted to mention like the main like important points, the main findings, the drawbacks, the limitations. So it can also be an example for other countries that want to make a change to a more modern and more functionally based disability assessment system.
I would say the first main finding is that this is a huge improvement to the previous system that Armenia had. The current functionality assessment takes into account far more factors in a person's life and tries to capture as many different levels of their dimensions of being able to function, whether it's their work and their society, in their day-to-day life, than the previous system. And then the second point is that, of course, there is room for improvement, and we lay out a couple of recommendations for the Armenian government, but also for folks involved at all levels of the reform, to take those for them to decide what are the next steps from after the implementation of this new assessment. But I think that this truly serves as a model, I think, for the region, but for the rest of the world.
How did the collaboration with Georgetown University begin?
Well, I was asked by Georgetown University to give a guest lecture in to their grad students who are working on global health issues. And so I've lectured in front of the class a couple of times. I found the students to be very engaged and bright. Then I found out, they contacted me and said there's this Capstone project where they try to look for organizations who can use a couple of their graduate students to do a project for the organization, which also is the sort of culminating project experience of their master's program. And I thought, well, this is a perfect opportunity to get, to be perfectly honest, low cost, high quality researchers to do this project. So I signed up for the CIP for the Capstone project, and thankfully, Josh and Ksenia, two very strong students, very good people, chose our project as the one they wanted to do for their capstone.
Why did you choose this topic as your capstone project?
What I really wanted to get out of the capstone project was to learn more about topics I was not fully engaged with and aware of during my studies at Georgetown. And I felt that Daniel, when he visited our class and spoke about the work that the Center for Inclusive Policy does. It just spiked my interest in disability rights abroad and in disability rights within the field of development. So I felt like I needed to learn more about the topic. And on top of that, I just also had an interest in the region and the Caucasus. So it was the perfect mix where I felt like I was just learning a lot every single day. I was very happy with the result.
Also because it's sits like at the intersection of inclusive policy and as well as like digital governance. Also, I was interested in the region and in Armenia as a country. I was hoping I can contribute with my language skills. And then I also I like the idea that we worked with Center for Inclusive Policy, which and our capstone was really practical and policy relevant. So it wasn't just an academic paper or just a research, but it was also a practical policy paper that can be used and hopefully would be helpful for the policymakers in Armenia and hopefully for other countries. And and I just also love the idea that it was related to people with disabilities and disability inclusion, even though it's not something I worked with before, but I just wanted to learn more about this topic.
And if I could just add really quick that Ksenia, I think, brought up another really important point, that when we were talking about projects we wanted to do, this was one of the only projects that was like a very clear product that not just like an organization wanted, but a whole government of a country was interested in. So we were really excited about the opportunity to work on something that would have like an actual impact once we finished it, and that people are going to be reading this and using this for the benefit of others.
Why is this report important right now?
You know, all around the world, a lot of countries are trying to move from a medical or charity-based approach to social protection to a more inclusive one. And a big component of that is coming up with disability assessments, which are more in line with the social model of disability. Disability assessments that really help figure out what are the supports needed in order to be able to have people with disabilities participate on an equal basis with others. And this whole idea of assessments and how to do it, not just in a theoretically good way, but in a practically good way, being able to practically implement it, is a real challenge. And Armenia is doing some very innovative things. And I thought they are a really good example to other countries, not just of how to move in this direction, but that moving in this direction is possible. It's a great opportunity to have a real life case study that could be that can help other countries, and also as a way for Armenia to look and assess itself, because there's recommendations in the report as well. Nothing's ever perfect, and there's always next challenges. And I think the report should be helpful within Armenia as they move forward on their path, and also, as I said, as an example to others.
How did you approach the research and development of the report?
So we used a qualitative mostly approach, and then we did it a desk review as well as literature review of and some policy documents regarding to this topic, to the reform on disability rights in Armenia. Then we did semi-structured interviews with the government officials, with international experts from different organizations. Also, we did focus groups with people with disabilities in Armenia and OPD, so organizations for people with disabilities. And also throughout the process, we were including the ICF framework. Then after these interviews, we did the research and analyzed the findings and structured them in a way that we had our findings, and then we had recommendations.
We just wanted to be a sponge, but both Ksenia and I were not like experts on the field of inclusive policy, so we took the time to not only just do research online, but to speak with people people that were part of the study, but also people outside of the study that Daniel connected us with, or other connections we had to learn more about Armenia as well. So we wanted to learn as much as possible, um, to understand the context as deeply as possible before beginning the interviews. And then once we began those interviews, we started developing the report that we have today.
What was the most challenging part of the process?
I think we dealt with many stakeholders. There are a lot of people involved in this project, and because it's of paramount importance to the Armenian government and to every person with disabilities within this country. It was challenging at times to just manage all these different relationships, but with that challenge, it was a phenomenal experience for both Ksenia and I, who are interested in development, who are interested in working with, and any job we're going to have in the future, we're going to also be dealing with a very similar challenge of managing so many different stakeholders and relationships. So this was an excellent opportunity for us to learn, but also to do it ideally with the intention of creating something that'll be a benefit to others. So yeah, it was challenging, but a really great learning experience.
I think also one of the biggest challenges for us was that we did this research fully remotely. All the interviews, focus groups, and other activities were done online using Zoom meetings. We had to work with the help of translators. We had two wonderful translators from English Armenian, Armenian English. And I guess ideally, we would have to travel to Armenia. But I think even though we did it remotely, I think we did quite a good job.
Was there anything that surprised you along the way?
It was how long it takes, every decision, and communicating with stakeholders, communicating with Armenian government and other people from different international organizations. It just always took longer than, for example, we would have to work with the private sector. We always had to have approval for every decision, also because it's related to the field of topic of disability. So we also had to have we had to be very careful and have ethical considerations. So I think that's why the process took much longer than we initially expected.
What surprised me was just how open and involved all of these stakeholders were in this and developing this process while we were conducting all these interviews and focus groups. Just speaking, for example, with the organizations for people with disabilities, their representatives, all the years, decades that they've been involved in trying to create reforms to serve their communities. It was very, I think Ksenia and I would hop off a lot of these calls like just awestruck at the work that so many folks are doing to make Armenia a more livable place for everyone. So I was just very taken aback. I was almost concerned that just us two as two graduate students from America calling people online, that they would not be as open to talking to us and sharing. But I was very surprised at just how ready from every level, whether it's the government to people with disabilities who underwent an assessment, how just open they were to sharing their experience with us. It was a really fascinating experience.
Did this experience change the way you think about the topic?
Absolutely. This absolutely changed the way I think about inclusive policy and disability rights. I think just first of all, the difficulty of all the steps that need to be taken, all the organization that has to happen on the ground for folks to just create common sense, really, policies for folks with disabilities is it, yeah, I've learned just so much about just the policy process in general abroad and governance and development, and that was actually my focus in graduate school was governance and development, and this experience was I don't want to say it superseded my classes, but was the most practical thing I learned when it relates um to my focus of studies in graduate school, because I really got to see it firsthand through all these interviews, through the research we conducted.
First of all, it's the disability topic and even the inclusivity in the policy. I did not know a lot how is it done and how to make reforms more inclusive towards different different people, and it made me realize how important is it to have this like inclusivity and try to make a reform that will be helpful and not only from the technical way. So I also realized that that moving from a social moving to a social model, it's not just a technical challenge, but it also requires some kind of cultural change. It also requires trust building and constant monitoring and trying to adapt. So I guess I just realized that you cannot just write a perfect reform or perfect policy and implement it straight away. It always would require constant feedback and making some changes and twists on the way. And it's a very long and complex process.